A very big shout out to eSpace Productions who very kindly provided the thumbnail for this video. You can check out his deviant art portfolio in the description. Hello, it is Lord Slar here, coming back at you with another video, and the topic of today's is the best to worst Sontaran stories. So the Sontarans are one of those villains which really haven't made the transition from New Who to Classic Who all that well. I mean, not many have, but the Sontarans have been particularly badly hit. I'll outline why in my Sontaran stratagem Poison Sky bit of this video, but first we really need to discuss Strax. Oh, I hate Strax. I mean, for one, the jokes aren't funny. But that's subjective. That would be fine. It's just a really shite joke, and I think it's, they're not clever and they're in pretty poor taste. But whatever, let's cast that aside and look at why it's a big problem. It's just the fact that the Sontarans' credibility as a villain is completely diminished by all the jingoistic, shitty, not unfunny, not clever jokes that are made about them via Strax. I mean, that's all he is. He's just a walking, talking joke to get quick laughs, and it's really, really terrible and detrimental to the Sontarans as a villain. However, the Sontarans can be done very well, in many episodes they are. They're short, brutish, and their complete dedication to war is something which is quite interesting to watch, especially if any of you have heard the first Sontarans, which is a Big Finish play, which I highly recommend you check out as it's very, very good, and probably the best portrayal of the Sontarans that's ever been seen. Unfortunately, one on screen has never quite got it right, but I think some of them got pretty close, so without further ado, let's get on with the video. So at the worst spot, we have the Invasion of Time. So this is a story I used to quite like when I was little, and wow, I have absolutely no idea why. I just rewatched it for the sake of this video for the first time in years, and it was so painfully boring and dull and bad, and I hated it. I mean, for one, there's just kind of something about it. I like slow-paced stories, but there has to be stuff happening. I just don't feel like much is going on. It's just ambling about Gallifrey with nothing in particular going on. I mean, come on, this is meant to be a sequel to The Deadly Assassin. That was exciting and frantic and mysterious, and it was amazing. Whereas this is just stuffy politicians for the most part, and Leela getting lost and telling people to fight. And none of the characters have good chemistry with each other. Tom Baker, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with his performance, but it's just the fact how he was written in this story is terrible. Why does he need to do the things he does? I still don't understand the whole point of letting those people invade Gallifrey, and I, I just didn't like the Doctor during this episode because he was such a whiny little bitch. I understand he had to put on a show for whatever those creatures were called, but why in the first place? And then, to make matters worse, the Sontarans are crammed in to extend this to 6 episodes. That's not acceptable. You can't just shove them in there, to extend the episode. You can tell this was just Graham Williams' desperate attempts to fit in an episode at the end because they didn't have one, and they needed one. And it really, really, really didn't work. And on top of it, I hate Leela's exit in this story, and I don't buy her relationship with that guard at all. I don't even remember his name. I don't remember a thing about him apart from at some point in the story he did talk to Leela. This is such a bad story, and I thought it wasn't going to come in last. I thought the next story was going to come in last, and I'm pretty sure you all thought that was going to come in last, but no. Fuck the Invasion of Time. It's terrible. The only redeeming factor is the Part 4 cliffhanger, which admittedly is one of the greatest cliffhangers of all time. But fuck it, anyway. So at the next spot, we have the Sontaran stratagem and the Poison Sky. So this is a pretty bad story all in all, but not without its redeeming factors. For one, the fight scenes with the Sontarans and unit is pretty well directed and generally portrays the Sontarans pretty well, which New Who doesn't really do all that often, and to be honest, they're pretty fun to watch as we don't really get to see the Sontarans in much full-on combat. And also, Donna and Wilf, need I say more, two really good characters. But aside from that, this story has a lot of problems. For one, all of the heavy-handed stuff about soldiers and shit, I absolutely hate. I mean, I just don't like how the Doctor all of a sudden has this prejudice against soldiers after the Time War. I mean, I can kind of see the reasons for it, but no. And it's inconsistent because occasionally he's fine with soldiers, other times he isn't, and it just annoys me. And it's really it's not done well at all. It's not subtle, it's really heavy-handed, and it's particularly prevalent in this story. Martha's actually good in this story, though, which is worth mentioning, because I usually don't like Martha, but I did enjoy her here. What else? Well, the Sontarans are a big problem here. We're not even like, a minute into seeing our first New Who Sontaran and they're already making the potato jokes. There's three potato jokes by three completely different people. Like, you're going, oh, looks like a baked potato. It's not funny. It's not funny. It just completely diminishes their value as a scary monster. Because, New Who, I mean, not New Who, villains in Doctor Who are meant to be taken seriously unless it's like a comedy episode. But this isn't. This is not meant to be a comedy episode. These villains, well established villains, are meant to be taken seriously. And you're just basically giving us reasons to laugh at them. Fuck that, and the shit jokes as well. And on top of that, the Sontaran stratagem is to hide like little bitches. I know it does reference that in the episode, but still, it doesn't really feel like a Sontaran plan to me. Plus, that Luke Rattigan guy, I really, really can't stand him. I know that's kind of the intention, but no, I just hate him. And even when he redeemed himself at the end, sure, good, he redeemed himself, whatever. I just hate the character because he was such a whiny little bitch. And I know that was the intention, but sometimes you can go too far. And they went too far. So at the next spot, we have the Sontaran Experiment. So I really don't like this story either. I mean, sure, it has some interesting ideas, such as the Sontarans doing those brutal experiments on the humans, which, if is an episode which had been done better, it could have actually hit home and been really, like, horrible and scary. But in this story, it just isn't. Because it has no atmosphere, it's really, really cheap. I don't care about any of the characters. Steyr is just not that interesting as Sontaran to me. And worst of all, I wouldn't even say it was the main enemy. The main enemy in the story is the ditch. I mean, it seriously gets more attention than Steyr, because everybody's bloody falling down it, having to get out, finding another way out, and oh man, I don't know what it is, I just have a grudge against that ditch, because it's so annoying, and every time I see it in the story, I just hate myself. But one positive thing I will say about it is Steyer's robot is a pretty sick model. Let's not beat around the bush here. But aside from that, it doesn't have great characters, it's not very well paced, doesn't have an atmosphere, and I just find no reason to be interested in it whatsoever. Fair enough if you like it, but just because it's a two-parter doesn't mean I'm going to give it a free pass. It sucks. So at the next spot, we have the Two Doctors. Man, I love this story. It's really, really good. Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines just slip back into their roles as the Second Doctor and Jamie, and they all have a really good chemistry with Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant, who are the Sixth Doctor and Perry, and that's really fun to watch. There's some great characters here. Styke's a brilliant and very threatening Sontaran, who you do take seriously, unlike many other Sontarans, if you get what I'm saying. And Cassini and Dastari, some brilliant, brilliant stuff here. And let's not forget Shockeye. We all love Shockeye. That part 2 cliffhanger is just brilliant. It's got that Robert Holmes charm. There's so many good ideas, some interesting lore, lots of interesting races, and it does have its problems. The pacing could be tightened up a little, and just generally the script could be tightened up a little. And the Sontarans by episode 3 don't really have that much of a presence. But aside from that, it's a really well made episode which has some great actors, some great characters, a great story, and it's just really some really just brilliant Sontarans, and we haven't had Sontarans that threatening again. Tell me when we do, because I like them. So at the top spot, I think you all saw this coming. It's the Time Warrior. It's the original. It's the best. And the rate that Sontaran stories are going, I don't think it's ever going to be surpassed, because it's so brilliant. Robert Holmes with another excellent story. He's got great characters with Irongron and Rubish, who are so much fun, and there's some other really good ones as well. Sarah Jane's got a great introduction for her. John Pertwee is brilliant as usual, and also you've got Lynx, who is an amazing Sontaran, and I think all writers should take notes. That's how you do a Sontaran character, because he's easily the best, and I even like him more than Stike, and I do like the Sontaran Stike quite a lot. And it also introduced the pure historical format, which is kind of been used instead of pure historicals after this. So it had quite an influence on Doctor Who. I do really, really like the pure historicals and wish to make a return, but the pseudo historicals are still really good too, and I'm glad that Robert Holmes made them a thing. And yes, it is true, audiences do generally prefer the sci-fi ones to the pure historical ones, at least in terms of like audience approval ratings back in the 60s. So it made sense to kind of introduce some sci-fi elements to a historical, so you could still do them and still make it worth your while. But either way, this is a brilliant story, easily my best Sontaran story. So many good things to say about it, and if you haven't seen it already, you best go out and see it, as well as the Two Doctors. As for the rest, I wouldn't really recommend them, but I suppose if you're into Doctor Who enough to watch my channel, you probably watch every story anyway. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you back next time in another one.